Today I'm going to react to the Superman movie by James Gunn. I hate James Gunn. More specifically, I hate his Guardians of the Galaxy movies. I hate his Suicide Squad movie. I hate how those movies are basically comedies and cartoons. And I hate how they feel like music videos because there's cool music always playing in the background by rock bands. I hate how the comedy isn't actually funny, but it's more like cutesy comedy. I hate how, because nothing's ever serious in his movies, you're never actually worried about any of the characters. There's no stakes. The plot has no depth. I'm 48 and I've adored Superman since I was 4 years old. The original Superman is probably my favorite movie, mainly for nostalgic reasons, but all the same. I liked the Brandon Routh Superman movie because it was the first reincarnation of Superman after Christopher Reeve in terms of the cinema, and because it more or less acted as a sequel, not reboot, to the original Superman. I liked Man of Steel despite some issues I had, and I felt Henry Cavill was the perfect Superman. So not only was I not looking forward to this James Gunn Superman because I don't like James Gunn, but also because I had some Superman fatigue from them constantly recasting Superman, especially after having found the perfect Superman in Henry Cavill. I'll be reacting to this movie in 10-minute increments because I can't handle more than 10 minutes at once. So the movie starts with some subtitles telling you what's going on, what's been going on, what this universe is. Okay, great. And in the background, there's electric guitar playing the Superman theme by John Williams, which I find tacky and not good. Superman crash lands, having got his ass kicked. Basically, this movie's throwing us into the action right away without much exposition or introduction. And I think that's the way these comic book movies are going to be working now, since there's a bit of fatigue that everything's been repeated so many times. In the Fantastic Four movie, you notice the same thing where you're just thrown into the action right away and you're given like some backstory as we go, but the characters are mainly already established. So the next 10 superhero movies that come out are going to start with montages of all their past glories, rather than actually giving an introduction. And then Crypto the Superdog shows up and starts banging, like trying to play with Superman, even though Superman is dying and it's supposed to be funny. I don't mind Crypto, who cares? I don't know anything about Crypto. It's cool that the Fortress of Solitude looks like the one from the original Superman, because that was good. And the robots I don't mind because they were in the comic books. They call him Superman, which I thought is a little odd. They should call him Kal-El. And then the robots go, "Oh, Superman, meet robot number 12. She's new here." And then they proceed to give robot number 12 exposition. And I'm like, "Oh, that was tacky. That's cheesy." So this is your excuse for giving exposition by, again, having some new person here who doesn't know anything, so you can then tell the story to them. So then the robots put Superman, expose him to the sun, and he gets healthy again. Meanwhile, one of Lex Luthor's minions has been tracking Superman to find the fortress. So Superman flies back to the battle scene, and then we get the opening title, or whatever, Superman, we get the title. And it occurs to me that James Gunn had said that he wants to show what it's like for, a guy with old-fashioned values who believes in good and evil to interact with a world that's so cynical and, there's nobody that values kindness anymore. And I thought at the time, that's a good idea. That could be very powerful. But this movie does not succeed at all at that. I've watched it like really quickly before. This is the time that I'm actually watching it all the way through and commenting. But this movie utterly fails at having a really deep kind of meaningful moment where storyline where the modern day world realizes or is inspired by how good Superman is. So now there's a fight scene between Superman and the Hammer of Bravia, who's being either instructed or controlled by Lex Luthor by walkie-talkie. And then there's more really badly done exposition where one of Lex Luthor's employees goes, "It's like Lex Luthor knows Superman's moves ahead of before he makes them." And then another employee goes, "He does. He's been studying Superman's moves for over 10 years." I mean, what kind of way to make movies is that? Like, oh, I wonder how Dorothy's gonna get out of Oz. Well, I think she's gonna go see the wizard. How do you know that? Well, because she just was talking to the good witch of the East. Starting the movie by throwing Superman into battle like this and with 50 different people fighting, or 100, well, you don't really have any idea what's going on, so nothing really means anything. So that's the first 10 minutes. It's funny and tragic that it's a chore for me to watch a Superman movie, so I have to break it up into 10-minute increments. Not because I'm trying to do a good review or reaction video, but because I so much do not enjoy watching. So then the Hammer of Bravia returns to Lex Luthor, who we already knew was controlling him. We know they're in cahoots, and everybody at Lex, little Lex gang, they all congratulate him and call him Ultraman. So this scene adds nothing that we already didn't know. So now at 12 minutes we see Clark stumbling to work. So we get to see a whole introduction and interaction in and of the Daily Planet. Clark talks to his parents on the phone, who for some reason are really stupid rednecks, and they're also elderly. And then you see the beginning of an ongoing thing where all the women are attracted to Jimmy Olsen, even though he's an ugly dweeb, which is silly. And then we cut to Lex Luthor in the Pentagon, showing off his army, whatever. And they talk about how they should probably capture Superman, take him in for questioning, or jail him or whatever. Then we cut to Lois Lane's apartment. So Clark Kent is in her apartment, and he's making her breakfast for dinner, which is just so cute and funny and quirky. And then they make out, which is just oh so romantic. And then they both start giggling, which is also, it's just, the cuteness just compounds. And then Lois asks if she can interview him as Superman right now, and he says okay, so she starts the tape. And then they get into an argument during the interview about, can he invade other countries, and, is it right or is it wrong? And then Clark Kent Superman gets a little worked up and gets quite frustrated. I don't really understand the point of focusing on whether Superman should deal with other countries or intrude on laws in other countries and whatnot. I really don't see the importance of having this war going on in Bravia and Jukastra. And Superman and Lois Lane are bickering about how the interview should go while they're doing the interview. And I think it's supposed to be cute. And then he says his parents sent him there to help out the planet. And Lois says, because some people think he might be here for more nefarious reasons. Yeah, that scene felt like a obligatory Lois and Clark scene, just the two of them, because you just had to have it, and not much more than that. And then we go to the Arctic, where Lex Luthor is landing a plane. It kind of reminds me of Superman Returns, when Lex goes to the Arctic, and the tone of this movie kind of reminds me of Superman Returns. This movie reminds me more of Superman Returns than any other Superman movie. So Lex Luthor and his goons go into the Fortress of Solitude and start trashing and ransacking the place. Oh, and while they're trashing the place, it's funny because they don't even look at the robots while they slaughter them, because that's how good these goons are at their killing. They're so cool that they don't even look at the people that they're killing, basically. That old stereotype, right? You're so good at killing, you don't even need to look at the the people you're killing. You're just looking straight ahead of you because they're just kind of in your way. And the one bitch on Lex Luthor's team, one of his goons, she's like a T-1000. She can basically just morph into anything she wants, which is just very boring. And Lex walks by everybody while they're all fighting, and he's not even like noticing them. He's just looking ahead because, he's just so cool too, right? He can't be bothered by any of the action. And then Lex Luthor goes up to the like main computer, and he says to his goons, he goes, "Well, hopefully there's something on here that we can use to convince the world that Superman is evil." Basically, is what he says. Wow, that's really good storytelling there, James. And then Lex Luthor does a speech to himself or to his goons and talking about why he hates Superman, as though he's never told this story before. Like when I go to the grocery store, I say, I've got to go to the grocery store so that I can get food, because then I use the food so that I can eat it. And then, and I stock up there and I cook the food myself. And I've got to bring money so that I can pay for the groceries. And then the Terminatrix, I'll call her, she comes up and she's like, yeah, Lex, I know. I hate him too. I sacrificed my humanity to get to him, to destroy him. Like, are you kidding me? That would be like, yeah, I'm going to go to the groceries because I need food. And then someone says to me, yeah, I know. I need food too. I also go to the grocery store. And then the Terminatrix hacks in because she's a Terminatrix. She hacks into the computer and she goes, what if Superman shows up? And he goes, oh, don't worry. Lex goes, I created a distraction. Because as if she wouldn't have asked that before even going, right? So again, we're just dictating exposition to the audience. So we're 30 minutes into the movie now. I hated this movie even before it came out, even before I saw it. So yeah, at the 30-minute mark, these two guys take, henchmen of Luthor, they take this little crate out, and it's got this baby monster in it. Total James Gunn, like, silliness. And the monster's going to grow really huge, the size of Godzilla. So the robot Terminator chick, with technology so advanced that she can integrate with a Kryptonian computer, recovers the entire message that Superman's parents sent to him. This turns out to be an incredibly important plot point to this movie, and also incredibly stupid. So the little baby monster looks like a Pikachu. So the monster jumps in the lake, and I think it grows in water, so a second later it's like the size of a skyscraper and Superman's fighting it. And then the Justice Gang shows up. Why does this feel like an anthology series? It's like there's like 50 different characters that you don't know anything about, and you probably never will. Yeah, so the Justice Gang joins in to fight the Godzilla monster. Even though there was no tension or excitement, since Superman seemed to have the whole problem dealt with quite handily. Like, this monster never stood a chance from the very beginning. He never was a threat to anyone. I'm not saying this movie Superman has to be super realistic or super adult, but this movie, it's as though it was made for 6-year-olds. So then Lex Luthor makes public the MacGuffin they got from the Fortress of Solitude, where Superman's parents are telling him that he's here to rule over the humans and have a harem, which is the most random plot contrivance since, I don't know. Yeah, so Superman's Kryptonian computers couldn't fix this message sent by his parents, but the Terminatrix who works for Lex Luthor was able to do it in like 10 seconds. So that's the first 40 minutes done. First third of the movie done. I'll never have to watch this again. Alright, I'm back after a 2-hour break because watching this movie is so depressing. Who would have ever thought watching a Superman movie would be depressing? Especially coming from a guy who loves Superman, who adores Superman. But I'll watch another 10 minutes now. This will be another 10-minute installment. I'll plug my nose and hold my breath and wade through this shit for 10 minutes. Okay, so here's a good question. What, thus far, is this movie even about? Okay, to my best of my knowledge, it's about Lex Luthor trying to trying to frame Superman as evil. Trying to turn the world against Superman and see him as evil. That's the entirety of the plot of the story so far. That's not half bad, I guess, but of all the ways to frame him, this might be the weakest. Getting a message from his parents saying that he was sent to rule the world. Plus, you could just doctor it, or Superman could just deny it. Wouldn't it be easier to just trick Superman into accidentally killing somebody and then saying, hey, look, Superman killed somebody? Or trick him, trick Superman into, you destroy a country and then make it look like it was Superman that did it. There was a city in the Superman comics called Coast City, where Green Lantern is from, and that got demolished, and Green Lantern took it very personally. They could have Coast City get destroyed, and you could have Superman think that it was his fault that this city got destroyed, so even Superman thinks it was his fault, so he can still have this crisis of identity. So the whole world is turned against Superman, and everybody's going on about how he wants to have a harem. And I'd say that's a little degrading and silly for a Superman story. That, so the whole world thinks that Superman wants to have a whorehouse. That's the plot, that's the story of this movie, is that Lex Luthor convinces the world that Superman wants to be a pimp. And then the president of Bravia goes through a teleportation machine that Lex Luthor owns, and then he says, oh, we did it, Lex. So they're in cahoots. And there's a whole new layer of questions. If Lex Luthor has a teleportation machine, he's spending his master plan, though, is just to convince the whole world that Superman wants to be a pimp. Couldn't there be so many better things to do with a teleportation machine? I mean, you could teleport Superman into another galaxy or something. But instead, no, you use your teleportation machine to forge Superman's signature into showing that he didn't pay his taxes. That's about how mundane this plot is. Superman returns to the Fortress of Solitude, and the whole fortress is all demolished, and one of the robots dies in Superman's arms, and Superman looks like he's going to break down crying, and he's holding the robot's hand, even though it's just an effing robot. Because Superman is such a nice guy, he even cries when his toaster breaks. And then Superman realizes his dog Krypto's gone, so naturally he flies right to Lex Luthor. Let's see if they even explain how he knows it's Lex Luthor. I mean, I guess it makes sense since Lex Luthor is the only villain on the whole planet in this universe, for all we know. But if Lex Luthor is the only villain on the planet, or the only villain doing stuff right now, why hasn't Superman been surveilling Lex Luthor all along? That would be an obvious thing to do. Like maybe instead of making breakfast for dinner for Lois Lane, he should have been following Lex Luthor and seeing what Lex Luthor was up to. Because Lex Luthor's been doing a lot of things right in the open. And Superman hasn't been even curious to see what Lex Luthor's been up to. Lex Luthor says, Superman, we finally meet. And I'm thinking, yeah, you finally meet? Like, you haven't met until now? So Superman had no idea Lex Luthor was a villain until now? So Lex Luthor managed to do all of this stuff and all this planning up till now without Superman having any clue. And Superman's really upset and he's like, where's the dog? Where's the dog? Because the dog is really important. I mean, in Spider-Man, he had to rescue Mary Jane. There's often the love interest that gets kidnapped. But in this movie, it's the dog. It's not a damsel in distress, it's a dog in distress. And then you see the Peacemaker character on TV, and it's just like, oh, come on. Who cares about Peacemaker? This is a Superman movie. But like everybody says, James Gunn cares more about the crappy little characters, the wacky, silly characters. So to recap the story so far, Lex Luthor has convinced the world that Superman wants to be a pimp. And Lex Luthor has dognapped Superman's dog. Imagine pitching that Superman story to somebody in an elevator. Like, what's Lex Luthor going to do next? Tie Superman's shoes together? Or put a whoopee cushion on the chair before Superman sits down? Or maybe he can, draw a penis on a Superman poster, like on Superman's mouth. Or maybe he can train the dog to like Lex more than Superman. That could be, I guess, where this story could go. Yeah, so Superman barges into Lex's office and just starts screaming at him while he's being filmed, and it ends up on the news. And everybody's making fun of him for being an asshole. And I'm thinking, like, Superman is like a total, is he an idiot? Like, is he just stupid? I mean, you can be a nice guy and be smart at the same time. They're not mutually exclusive. And so Superman floats home, and he's sulking, and he's sullen, and he's got this big pout on his face, and it's just so sad. I mean, if you're going to make him this pathetic, you should have him cry. Super tears. I mean, this Superman is like 30 years old, okay? He's not a little kid. Why is he acting like a little kid? And Lois Lane's at his apartment. I assume it's his apartment. And because they have to have an obligatory Lois and Clark scene. And Lois says to him, "You have a dog?" Because the story's about the dog. Because Superman got framed for being a pimp, and then someone stole his dog. And then Superman says that he likes punk rock. So there's some character development. I'm glad we have these little moments with Lois. So he likes punk rock, and she goes, "Oh, you come on, you're not punk rock." And then she goes, You see the good in everybody, and you think everybody's beautiful." And he goes, "Maybe that's the real punk rock." And I'm thinking, no, punk rock is about breaking beer bottles over your head and self-destruction. It's not about seeing things as beautiful. That's the opposite of punk rock. I'm sorry, picking flowers is hippie. And punk rock is, bleeding and not caring and, hurting yourself and smashing your guitar, shooting up heroin. I mean, is that what Superman is? I don't think you'll ever find the definition of punk rock being seeing the beauty in people and seeing the best in them. And James Gunn wrote these words, so James Gunn doesn't know what punk rock is either. And he goes, "I'm going to go turn myself in because there's a warrant for my arrest, and maybe that's how I'll find my dog, because I don't know how else to find him." Of course you don't. How would you know how to find your dog? You've only got the most highly sophisticated Fortress of Solitude. No, you wouldn't be able to find your own dog. I mean, it's not like you're Superman. Yeah, so we are now 50 minutes into the movie, and I gotta say this movie is not half bad when you've built it up in your mind to be the worst thing ever. And he says, "I love you, Lois," and she just says nothing. So this guy can't even get a girl. And I gotta say, this Lois Lane is a bit of a biatch, because, I mean, he's Superman and that's not good enough for her. But I mean, still, you're Superman and you can't get a chick to say "I love you" back? I mean, what does that say about your personality? So Superman turns himself in, and for some reason that means that Lex Luthor gets custody of him. And I have no idea how that works, so we'll just pretend it works. So Lex Luthor takes Superman to a pocket universe and locks him up with a guy that can turn into kryptonite. One would wonder why Lex didn't just lure him into the pocket universe in the first place without all of the scavenger hunting that's been going on about framing him as a pimp. And then Lois is trying to figure out, at the Daily Planet, she's trying to figure out what Lex is up to, because he's involved with this country Bravia, and why does he want Superman, blah blah blah. And as an audience, I'm wondering the same thing, so that's great. I doubt it'll be answered. I doubt there is a reason. I mean, Lex Luthor seems to have 10 different motivations, and they seem to change depending on what the story needs. And then Jimmy Olsen finds out about Superman being held in a pocket universe because Jimmy Olsen because he's such a ladies' man, he used to date Lex Luthor's current girlfriend. And so what is this, high school? Is Lex Luthor's master plan about to be undermined because his girlfriend has the hots for somebody else? You don't have to be a CIA agent or an FBI agent to know that you probably shouldn't tell your girlfriend of very serious top secret stuff that you're doing. You know, if you're a drug dealer or you're Tony Soprano, you don't come home after a day at work and tell your wife about all the terrible crimes you committed. And in this pocket universe, which I suppose can be connected to the internet, there's all these monkeys that are writing mean tweets about Superman on keyboards. I mean, you'd think that if you could train monkeys, you know, have these genius monkeys that can type full sentences, that they might be doing better things than writing mean tweets. Oh yeah, but I forgot we're all in high school, so basically that's how we all operate in this movie. So I convinced everybody in high school that this kid I don't like. I convinced everybody in high school that they want to be a pimp, and then I kidnapped his hamster or his dog or his cat, and now I'm getting my friends to write mean tweets about him. And you know, if I was Superman, and I found out the whole world thought I was a wannabe pimp, I'd kind of laugh about it, and I'd be like, okay, whatever, who cares? I don't care what you guys think. You know, you don't have any power over me anyways. I'm Superman. How about I just ignore you and continue doing exactly what I was doing anyways, which was saving lives and whatnot. I could care less what you guys think of me. But apparently this Superman has very low self-esteem, just like a 14-year-old would. And then he sees his dog in the pocket universe, and Lex Luthor says, we're going to learn what we can from this dog, and then we're going to put it down, and it will undoubtedly be painful. Wow, what a bad guy, huh? I can't believe Lex Luthor is so evil that he would hurt a dog. And then Lex is like giving Superman a tour of the pocket dimension where he holds all these criminals captive and also holds ex-girlfriends captive. And I'm thinking, again, it's just like, oh, so this is what happens when you've got an ex-girlfriend. Okay, again, high school. And I'm thinking, okay, so when Superman inevitably breaks out, isn't it his responsibility to like rescue everybody from here? And I don't think that happens. And then Jimmy Olsen's walking down the street and all the girls are calling him handsome, even though he's a short little guy who looks like he plays Dungeons and Dragons. So Jimmy Olsen meets up with Lex Luthor's girlfriend who's in love with Jimmy. And he's like trying to get her to tell him what's the connection between Lex Luthor and Baravia. And really all you got to do to screw over Lex Luthor is just, you know, manipulate his girlfriend, because he's this super genius who's a psychopath who gives all of his secrets he tells to his airhead girlfriend. And then the girlfriend, she gets all annoyed or hurt that she's like, oh, I thought you wanted to see me, but you just want information about where Lex does blah, blah, blah. And it's supposed to be funny. It's supposed to be cutesy. That like, oh, Jimmy now has to pretend that he likes this girl in order to get information out of her. And it's just so funny because he's this nerd and this hot blonde chick is madly in love with him. It's just so hilarious, right? That's the idea. And I gotta say, I can't stand when people think they can substitute cutesy for funny. Like, just because it's cute, that's automatically funny. And that's what James Gunn seems to think a lot of the time. Okay, and then back to the pocket universe. The guy that's got kryptonite arms, and who's like helping to keep Superman enslaved there. He's doing it against his will because Lex Luthor has his baby child, and the baby child is within eyesight. And so Superman says, "Look." Basically, the idea is that Lex will kill the baby unless this kryptonite arm guy, keeps Superman captive. And then Superman says to him, "Hey, but wait, if you let me go, I can rescue your kid." So I guess it's that simple. So then Lois Lane goes to the Hall of Justice to visit the Justice Gang, and Guy Gardner's like pouring himself a coffee, and he goes, "Where's the creamer?" I guess that's supposed to be funny and cute, right? The superhero is getting frustrated because he can't find cream for his coffee. How silly. And then this wacky character nobody's ever heard of called Mr. Fantastic says, "Oh, I put these nanobites in Superman's bloodstream so I can track him, and the trail ends here, and that must be where the pocket universe is." But then I'm thinking, okay, so your sophisticated nanobites, you can't track them into the pocket universe. However, the monkeys that are typing onto the internet who are in the pocket universe, somehow their internet can go from there into the world. I mean, why bother all this with all this complex stuff like pocket universes if they can't even make sense of them? Right, like it's supposed to be complicated so that you'll be like, well, I guess it makes sense because it's so complicated. But then you're like, wait, it's so complicated and it doesn't make sense. Right, like you went through all the trouble of making a pocket universe, but yet you can send emails to and from it, and you trusted your girlfriend with that information so that now anybody can go there. So, which defeats the whole point of having a pocket universe. And if Superman is like indestructible, how did Mr. Fantastic manage to put nanobites into Superman's bloodstream? And Guy Gardner goes, "You want to break a federally incarcerated guy out of jail or whatever?" I'm like, how is that a pocket universe? How is that federal incarceration? See, the problem with none of this making any sense is that breaking him out won't need to make any sense either. You could just have Green Lantern open up a Green Lantern portal for all we care, right? Anything can happen. Or Mr. Fantastic or Terrific, he can just say, "Oh, I also know how to make portals, so I'll open a portal. Yeah, my technology can open a portal into this pocket universe." Or why stop there? I can just teleport him right here, right now, because I got this technology. Okay, so now we're 1 hour into the movie, only about an hour at the most left. And I gotta say, I would sum up this last hour as a lot of bickering. I feel like that's all I've kind of really seen, is a lot of bickering. And then Guy Gardner, he says, "I took a vow to never get involved in politics." And then Terrific, or whatever, Mr. Terrific says, "You never made a vow, that vow." And Guy Gardner goes, "It was an implied vow." And then the Hawk Girl, she goes, whenever he doesn't want to do something, he always says it's a vow. And Guy Gardner goes, "Oh, I have half a mind to make a hammer out of this with my Green Lantern ring and beat the crap out of both of you." And it's supposed to be really funny and cutesy. And Hawk Girl smiles because Guy Gardner is irritated. Okay. Oh, so if it's not bickering, it's banter. Isn't this so much fun? "I need creamer for my coffee. I'm a Green Lantern, but I can't find the creamer for my coffee. And I made it was an implied vow. It wasn't a vow, you know." And so Lois Lane says, "So you're just going to let him rot then because you don't want to get involved in politics?" And like, again, why the hell does the Green Lantern care about politics and getting in trouble with the government? I mean, give me a break. You're a superhero. You can do whatever you want. And then she goes, Lois Lane says to Guy Gardner, your haircut should be against your vows. And then Guy Gardner says, 346 women say otherwise. And it's like, okay, so the stakes right now are so serious because Superman might die, but Lois Lane is going to make fun of his haircut. And then he's going to get insecure and say that all these women love his haircut. That's how serious these people are about what's going on in this movie. I mean, this is like, remember that time in Return of the Jedi when Luke Skywalker said to Darth Vader, "Do you have any bubble gum? I could really use some bubble gum right now." And Darth Vader says, "Well, this is not a time for bubble gum. Jeez, Luke, we're about to fight with lightsabers and stuff." You know, just because James Gunn wants this to be more cartoonish and more comic, and why does comic have to be cartoon? Doesn't mean it has to be silly, ridiculous, and totally comedic. Like, what the hell is this? As a viewer, I have no concern at all about Superman. I know he's going to be fine because the rest of the cast of the movie, nobody's taking it seriously. They're all like, "Oh, don't worry, we'll just rescue him when we feel like it. It'll all work out." And even Lois Lane is So she's so laid back, she's making fun of his haircut. Or you want to make this movie kid friendly? That's fine, but again, being kid friendly doesn't mean stupid. You could have a family friendly cartoon, not cartoon, but comic accurate, even silly movie and still have it not be totally stupid. You know, when they were making this movie, when this movie was announced, James Gunn apparently was saying how this movie is going to be about how a person with, virtue and honesty, how they would fit into a modern cynical world. And I thought that's actually a really good idea if he can pull that off. And this Justice Gang should have been a lot more cynical and a lot more bitter and negative and mistrusting of Superman, whereas they're not. And so it ruins the whole juxtaposing of Superman's integrity with these guys, because they're actually not that bad. They're not nearly as cynical as they should be. And they're a lot more goofy than they should be. So finally, Mr. Fantastic says, okay, I'll go with you, Lois, and we'll see what's going on. No, he doesn't just say that. I'm paraphrasing. But and I'm like, no, of course he doesn't just say that. There's got to be some stupid joke. And then I restart the movie, and of course there's a joke. The joke is he goes, we'll take my ride. And then he goes to open the garage door to his, his ride. And the garage door very, very slowly opens. And that's the joke. Because there always has to be a joke. And the joke always has to not be funny. And just in case you didn't get the joke and see how funny it was, Lois actually says, you have a flying saucer, but you couldn't get a better garage door? Ha 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 ha, that was so funny. I'm glad you underlined how funny that was by actually repeating out loud, oh, this was the joke. Did you see that joke? Maybe after they take off in the flying saucer, she should make another comment and go, boy, that garage door sure took a long time to open. And then he can say, oh, come on, can you get over the garage door? And the audience is just in hysterics at how funny this joke was. And it's not like that joke hasn't been done before in many movies. It was done in Austin Powers. I could name like 6 movies, at least another one after Austin Powers. I can't think of anything, but it's at the tip of my tongue. Write it in the comments if you can, where it's like somebody's like, okay, here we go, ready, set, go. And then they go, and then the bike or whatever they're on just moves really, really slowly. It's got to be in at least one Simpsons episode, Family Guy, because this is cartoon comedy crap. While the garage door was slowly opening, I was thinking, oh my God, you know what would make this even worse? Is if it's opening really, 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 really slowly, and then it just stops, and then it just starts moving again really slowly. Thank God that didn't happen, because wow, like the humor couldn't. It could get worse. At least I know it could get worse. And Mr. Fantastic had referred to Superman as her boyfriend, and then so now that they're in the his spaceship, she goes, "Oh, just to be clear, he's not my boyfriend." And she's like, "Look, I don't care." She's like, "No, I'm just talking out loud. I mean, we're not in a relationship." Like, oh God, we're back in high school again. You're worried about whether Superman's alive or dead, but you're gonna talk about whether or not you're going steady. So Green Lantern and Lois Lane are both airheads. That's just great. And Lex Luthor. Everybody's an airhead. You know, I really thought James Gunn was smarter than this. I thought he was smart enough to know that the stakes were pretty high with this movie, and that you can't just do your silly, cheesy jokes and have any moments of seriousness be tarnished with a cheesy joke. And then quick cut to the scene of Superman in jail, and Lex Luthor's asking Superman questions, or else he's going to shoot somebody with a gun, well, obviously with a gun. And then, you know, he shoots the guy, shoots him in the head. It's like a 20 seconds into the scene, and he shoots someone in the head. Like, okay, right after Lois Lane was talking about how she's an airhead. Like literally 20 seconds ago, Lois Lane was having there was a silly joke about a garage door opening. literally half a minute ago, and then now someone gets their head blown off. But I gotta say, in an hour, this is the only serious moment so far in the whole movie. And then we've got the famous Yondu scene. Mr. Terrific lands on the campgrounds that lead to the Pocket universe, and cool music starts playing. And Mr. Fantastic basically does the exact same scene that Yondu has in Guardians, where he's got that I don't know, that thing that he whistles and it goes around and it kills everybody, and it's just a very cool little visual scene. And I mean cool, so I mean that sarcastically. So it's just a complete rip-off of that scene. And in case you as the viewer were not impressed by how cool that scene was trying to be, Lois Lane goes, afterwards she goes, "Holy shit." So because we're all supposed to be saying that too. It's essentially like canned laughter to let you know when the joke is. I'm surprised this movie doesn't have canned laughter too. I gotta say, I expected this movie to be really bad, but this is even worse than I thought it would be. No wonder James Gunn writes his screenplays so fast. And it's kind of sad to see somebody reach the climax of their career so early, and then they're just making movies and writing screenplays that are all derivative of stuff they've already done, and you're just like, okay, so this is just Guardians of the Galaxy. Right, like after Guardians, I hated Guardians in the first place, but people may have said, "Oh wow, James Gunn he's an up and comer. He might be able to write different types of stories," and but no. That's the limit. He's already reached his limit. That's all he does is Guardians of the Galaxy. Now back in the Pocket Universe jail, the Kryptonite man is crying about how the guy got shot in the head. And he's like, says to Superman, "So you said you can get to my son?" So he's already like gonna help Superman escape. And you might wonder, why did Lex leave Superman and Kryptonite Man alone together unsupervised when this guy is obviously a nice guy and could be talked out of doing all the kryptoniting? No, he just left them both unsupervised. So the Kryptonite guy turns off the kryptonite and then heals Superman with a makeshift sun. And while this is happening, Mr. Terrific and Lois Lane are in the Pocket Universe to try to save Superman. I don't know why Mr. Terrific let Lois Lane come along with all of her superpowers, because she'll do really well in a Pocket Universe. And then one wonders, the Kryptonite guy, whatever the hell he is, he can change his body into any element at all, right? So why couldn't he all along have, turned his arms into like razor sharp whatever and broken the windows and escaped himself on his own? He can also fly, by the way. But he was just waiting in there for And now we're basically an hour and 10 minutes into the movie, so we're more than halfway out. So now Superman's free, he rescues the baby, and then he rescues Superdog. Oh, and by the way, so after Superman saves the baby of the Kryptonite Man flies over and goes to Superman, "You have to take him. I can't carry him while I change form." And I'm thinking, who cares? Why give us that information? It means nothing. Wholly unimportant detail, Batman. And then after Superman rescues the Superdog pounces on Superman, because that's what he does all the time, and it's supposed to be cute and funny. And Superman's holding the baby, and he's like, no, Krypto, you're going to squash the baby. And that's supposed to also be really cute and funny. And amid all of this wannabe, try hard, cute, and funny, where's the Superman movie? Oh yeah, let's remind ourselves. Okay, so Lex Luthor has convinced the world that Superman is a pimp, a wannabe pimp, and now Superman's rescued his dog. So now he's just got to clear up the issue of everybody thinking that he's a pimp. And then, of course, the subplot of like Lois Lane figuring out why Lex Luthor, what he wants with Baravia, when we all know what it is. He just wants to do evil stuff. Does anybody really care about the details? And then to add tension to this whole mess, Mr. Terrific says, "Oh, the portal's been open too long. We can't stay here much longer." Ooh. Okay, now get this. Um, Superman says to Kryptonite Man, he points up and he goes, "I think we got to get to those portals up there." And Kryptonite Man goes, "Okay, but how do we work them?" And Superman says, "I don't know, but we'll figure it out." Now, all of that whole interchange, that was very important, right? I think we got to do this, and I don't know how we're going to do it, but we'll figure it out. Maybe that's kind of like James Gunn's screenplay. Like, I got to do this. I don't know how I'll do it, but I'll figure it out. I don't know. That's a great plan. And then there's a bunch of mindless action where all the Luthor henchmen are like flying around. Everybody's flying around in this micro universe, whatever the hell, pocket universe. And then the Kryptonite Man, he defeats a bunch of the minions by blowing up so that all that's left of him is his head. And now his head is flying around, which is just so weird. And James Gunn loves weird. And I guess that also equals creative in his brain. That's not creativity. That's just weird. Okay? Lesson for you, James Gunn. Creativity does not just... You can't just be weird and say that that's creativity. It's not a cheap way of getting away with it. You're not getting away with it. Any more than having cute stuff means you're automatically funny. Any more than overstimulating and bombarding the audience's senses equals a great action scene. I once read a review of the movie Speed Racer where the reviewer said it's like watching somebody puke Skittles for 2 hours. And that's what this scene is. And it also reminds me that watching somebody puke Skittles for 2 hours was also how I felt about the movie Thor, Love and Thunder. This scene is probably the scene I hate the most in the whole movie. I just can't wait for it to be over because it's just too much. Too much like eye candy. It's an overdose. And then Mr. Terrific sees Crypto and he goes, "God damn, it's a flying dog." And we're all supposed to laugh. Okay, now Superman's being carried in this river. It's some kind of like anti-proton river or whatever the hell. And he's holding the baby above his head so that the baby doesn't fall into the river where he's, being floating. And the tide is carrying him towards this black hole. And I'm thinking, well, why can't Superman just fly out of this thing? Anyways, so he's heading towards this black hole, and Superman yells out, "Black hole!" And who is he yelling this to? I don't know, nobody. So Superman whistles to Crypto, and Crypto comes, and Superman says, "Crypto, I can't get out of this," being the lake, and as if Crypto understands complete sentences. And then he goes, "Crypto, it's a black hole." Was this screenplay written for blind people in case blind people are watching this movie so they know what's going on? "Crypto, I am in a sea and I am floating towards a black hole." And what's he going to say next? If I end up in the black hole, I'm going to die. Is that what happens next? And he goes, "Crypto, pull us out." Of course, Crypto doesn't understand. And then Crypto starts licking the baby because, of course, that's cute and funny. It's especially funny because they're in dire danger. So for the fact that Crypto is licking the baby is just hilarious. And then Kryptonite Man comes and he helps to pull Superman and the dog away from the black hole. I thought he couldn't hold things while he couldn't carry things while he was in changing form, whatever, right? And they managed to escape the pull of the black hole even though it's already pulling on them, because as you know, once a black hole's already pulling on you, you can still escape it. So they avoided the thing and the catastrophe, and they're lying there. And Kryptonite Man, now he's only a head. He looks at Superman. He goes, "Man, you are so weird." And that's funny, right? Because this guy's only a head, and he's calling Superman weird, right? That's hilarious. And then Mr. Terrific arrives, and he goes, "Damn, Superman, a dog with a cape, a green baby and a squiggle man. And that's funny too. I don't think this movie's gone more than 30 seconds without a joke. And I hesitate to say joke because I haven't laughed, right? Like an attempt at a joke. I mean, Guardians of the Galaxy had bad jokes, but these are some of the worst ones, this movie. Also, this movie suffers from what all insecure movies suffer from, which is it can't go more than like 20 seconds without somebody saying something. Like, it's terrified of silence because that gives the audience time to think, and the movie maker is terrified that if the audience thinks, they're going to realize how shitty the movie is. And so they all make it out of the black hole. Not all of them. They make it out of the black hole safe and, as if, not a scratch. And the Crypto, the super dog, is biting and destroying one of playing with a toy with one of Mr. Fantastic's devices. And he's just like ripping it to shreds. And Mr. Fantastic goes, "Damn, those things aren't cheap." And that's really funny. That's another joke. And I want to harken back to when I said that there's lots of people held captive in this pocket universe. And guess what? Superman didn't save any of them. They're all still stuck in there. I doubt that it's ever going to be referenced again. Because it should be, right? He should be going back and saving them. Or at least saying that he's going to. Okay, Superman said, there's people in there, we have to go back and save them. And they go, oh, you don't have you're not strong enough. Okay, so I'll give them that. At least they covered that base. And then there's a scene where Eve Tessmacher, Lex Luthor's girlfriend, is secretly on the phone with Jimmy saying, yeah, I'll give you all the dirt on Lex because he was just a jerk to me, and essentially. And you got to promise we're going to go on a date because, of course, all the women love Jimmy Olsen. So that's wonderful. That's a wonderful little scene. So then Superman goes home to his parents' house with Lois. And I'm really I feel like this movie's like 5 hours long. That's never a good sign. It should go fast if you're enjoying yourself. Yeah, so this scene here with Superman back home up with Kansas with his parents and Lois Lane there is just an obligatory scene, and that's all it is, and that's all it does. Nothing happens. And then Lex Luthor's trying to reopen the pocket universe, and something's going wrong. And what's really sad is I watched this movie once before, and I don't remember anything that's about to happen in the next half hour, so it must be really good. And then Pa Kent gives a pep talk to Superman. Obligatory. It's going to be, Clark, we love you, and we believe in you. No matter what you do, it'll be the right thing, because you're a good person and you are who you are, and that'll always be enough. That's basically what he's going to say to him. Okay, so what he actually says is, your choices, Clark, your actions, that's what makes you who you are. And Clark looks at him because he's like, wow, holy shit, that's awesome. Because I'm a fucking idiot, so now that you told me that, now I know who I am. And Superman's parents both talk with a very southern accent. Clark, there's something on the box you're going to want to see. I couldn't be more proud of you, Clark, son. And I'm thinking, if they talk like that, then why doesn't Clark talk like that? Right? Shouldn't he talk like that too? And then Clark goes and looks at the box. And on the news it says Bavaria is going to war with Jakarta, or whatever the hell it's called. So, alright. And then some kids put up a Superman flag, and all the oppressed people start chanting Superman, which I think is probably the only good part in the movie so far. And don't worry, it won't last. Oh, but guess what? Plot thickens. There's a rift starting in Metropolis. Lex started a black hole thing. Threatens the entire planet. Might this actually be an event that lasts for more than 30 seconds, that would be great. We are finally at an hour and a half into the movie. The people of Metropolis are evacuating, and the movie, thank God, is finally going to be over once and for all. Yeah, the movie's so bad, even the characters in the movie are being evacuated from it. This movie is like the exact opposite of Man of Steel, which, despite its flaws, I enjoyed. And Henry Cavill's way better than this douchebag, little corn sweat. No offense to the little douchebag. Man of Steel had a simple plot with not so many characters, whereas this thing's like, the plot's all over the place. You don't even know what's going on. And there's like 5,000 characters. And James Gunn is just constantly throwing everything in the kitchen sink at you. Okay, so Lois and the Daily Planet are basically saying, oh, so Lex Luthor's real plan is that he wants to be king of Baravia. And I'm thinking, I thought the plan was to defeat Superman. So defeating Superman isn't a big enough plan for you? What's plan A? What's the big plan? Which one's the small plan? Because when you got two big plans like that, you might fail at both of them. I mean, like, honestly, I would say, listen, Lex, why don't you concentrate on getting rid of Superman? Because if you can't get rid of him, then your plan of being king of Baravia, that's not going to work. And I think the movie has actually gone 1 minute without a joke. Either that or I'm so desensitized I'm just not noticing them anymore. And again, I shouldn't be calling them jokes because I don't think they're funny. Yeah, this is a real slog. My instinct would tell me to turn this movie off right now, but I guess I have to finish it. And so while there's a war in Baravia, there's also a rift that's tearing through Metropolis, and it just tore Lex Luthor's skyscraper in half. I guess that's part of Lex Luthor's brilliant plan, right? Okay, finally, I think we're at the climax because the hammer of Baravia and the Terminator chick just like tackled Superman and they landed in a football field, so hopefully this is the big final battle. So the robot chick put nanites into his lungs. Like, Superman's got these nanites that are like in his lungs. They're supposed to kill him that way, and he's flying up and towards the sun. And see, the problem is, it really doesn't matter. Like, anything can happen, right? He's got super breath, so maybe he can just breathe the nanites out with super breath, right? Who knows? Or the sun will burn it off. Like, anything can happen. Or Mr. Terrific will show up and will, that's probably what'll happen. No, he actually just nosedives back down to Earth and just crash lands. And it knocks out the robot chick because why not, right? I guess she can go unconscious. We don't even know what she's made out of. And then Hammer of Baravia takes his helmet off, revealing himself to be a clone of Superman. We are now at 1 hour and 40 minutes, which feels like 5 hours. Doesn't feel shorter than 5 hours. So then Lex Luthor has like an intercom hooked up to the clone of Superman, and he tells Superman how he did everything, how he cloned him, and he's like, and you know, he goes, and this clone is even stupider than you, if that's even possible. So he's telling Superman how stupid he is while he explains all of his plans and how it all works to him, right? I mean, this Lex Luthor, his girlfriend, ruined his whole plan. So or his current girlfriend. So I don't think he's in any position to be calling anybody stupid. And then the super gang, I mean, the Justice Gang shows up in Baravia to help stop the war there because it's another plot. Because the movie's called Superman and the Justice Gang. That was the title of this movie. Oh, and then Guy Gardner, he has all these middle fingers, like Green Lantern middle fingers, that are just fighting all the tanks off, while Guy Gardner just walks, not even looking at all at all the destruction he's causing. Because again, just like earlier in the movie, that's what the cool people do. They don't even pay attention to how powerful they are. They just keep walking while they leave, while they damage or destroy their enemies. It's kind of like when I walk down the street and there's all these hot chicks and they're all staring at me and they're all going, "Oh my God, you're so hot," and I just ignore them and I just keep walking. It's kind of like that. Oh, and then Lex finally clarifies his goals to us, the audience. He says he didn't. He didn't try. I wasn't trying to kill Super. Essentially, I wasn't trying to kill Superman so that I could take over Baravia. I was taking over Baravia so that I could kill Superman. Okay, great. So at least we know what the main plan was now. Although it's whatever. Who cares? I mean, at the end of the day, who cares? Because you wasted our time with this whole Baravia thing. That was just a red herring. Then okay, great. And it doesn't even really make sense because he had Superman trapped in a pocket dimension, and then he took off. Luthor took off to further the Baravia agenda. So that's not true. But then again, does it matter? In a James Gunn movie, nothing matters. In a James Gunn movie, who cares? Because he doesn't care. And so then Superman clone is about to kill Superman. But then Superdog shows up and helps him out, saves him. So Superdog is the real hero of the movie. And then Superman clone gets sucked into the black hole. And then, of course, you wonder, how are they going to close the black hole? How do they stop it from consuming the whole Earth? Don't worry, it'll just stop, and they'll just explain it away like everything else in this movie. Oh yeah, so Mr. Fantastic, Terrific, whatever the hell his name is, and Superman, they show up at Lex's lair, and Mr. Terrific's like, oh yeah, I can just close the rift with the computer. There you go, easy as hell. And then Superman's going to do a speech to Lex about how, I'm human, I'm not an alien, I'm a good guy, you don't understand. And then Krypto shows up, and then just like at the end of the first Avengers movie, he tosses Lex around, bashes him around like a rag doll, the same way Hulk did to Loki. And congratulations to me, we're at 1 hour and 50 minutes, 1 hour and 50 minutes. The movie's basically over, so thank God. And they closed the rift, so it's like nothing ever happened, Good as new. Look up the word entropy. And then Lex sees on the news that everybody's found out that he was a traitor and that he was selling weapons to Baravia. And even one of them says, Lex Luthor sucks. And it's like, ha ha ha, now you got the bad gossip. You tried to make Superman look bad in front of the whole high school. And now you're the loser. Lex Loser. That's what we're going to call you. I'm surprised they didn't put that in. I mean, never mind the fact that you shot a guy in the head. You're a loser. Loser. In the news, they go, we owe Superman an apology. He is the hero we thought he was. In other words, Superman is the cool guy. He is cool after all. And we're going to name him King of the Prom. He wins King of the Prom. Superman is the most popular boy in school. And Lex Luthor's so upset that he's crying. That's how upset he is that he doesn't get to be prom king. And then we're in the epilogue area of the movie now. And good on James Gunn for having the people from the pocket dimension universe. They all are let out. They're all finally freed. Good. It's good that he tied up that. I didn't want that to be a loose end. That's the only good thing I can say about this movie, actually. So then Superman and Lois kiss, which is, again, an obligatory scene. And then Superman's back at the Fortress of Solitude. And then Supergirl comes to get her dog, because it was her dog all along, which is why he misbehaved. And she calls Superman a bitch, and I would agree with her. I'd be much more interested in a movie with her, 'cause she's pretty hot. And then it ends with the robots playing footage of his adopted parents rather than his real parents, because he's learned the value of his adopted parents rather than his alien parents, which I guess means he feels truly at home and human, which is good. That's actually a good part of the movie. It's too bad the movie didn't focus exclusively on that, but rather that inserted so much nonsense. And so this movie was 99% nonsense and 1% good. In other words, I give it a 1 out of 100. Now, I've often thought about the terrible Star Wars sequel trilogy and how you could edit the three of those movies down into a very good 20-minute movie. You just take out 99% of that trilogy and it would be a good 20-minute Star Wars movie. There's got to be 20 minutes that are good in that big mess. And I think this movie could be edited down to a good 10-minute Superman movie. And it would be a really good 10-minute Superman movie. You might have to omit a lot of the dialogue. You might just have to mute or muffle a lot of the dialogue. But I think you'd certainly get 5 minutes out of this. I think what do? You take the first 2 minutes of the movie where Superman's lying in the ice and Krypto rescues him, get him be dragged back to the Fortress of Solitude, have the robot say he likes to hear his parents, it soothes him, and then you get finished with that part. That would be the first part of the movie. Then have the news that Superman was brought here to destroy us. Don't insert that shit about the brothel or whatever the hell that was. The harem. Just have it that the world decides he's a loser, or he's an alien, he's not human, and then have have the fight, a little bit of the fight with the Superman clone, and then have Superman his scene with his parents, very brief, just 30 seconds of that little speech that his father tells him. And then, have maybe the fight with the clone, and then have Superman sort of redeemed because he does his little speech to Lex Luthor about how he's human. And then have the final scene where the robots play the footage of his parents. You could do that in 10 minutes and you'd have a good Superman movie. Because of the rest of this sack of shit is filler. It's just an hour and 50 minutes of filler. All the Bravia thing was a waste of time. The cybernetic woman, cyber Terminator chick is a waste of time. The whole pocket dimension was a waste of time. Jimmy Olsen was a waste of time. The Lois Lane scenes were a waste of time. Almost all of the Lex Luthor scenes were a waste of time. The dinosaur fight, the big kaiju thing, whatever the hell, was a waste of time. Lex going into the Fortress of Solitude, I guess it was a waste of time. Mainly because it's already been done. It was already done in Superman Returns. It was probably done better. Yeah, it was done better in that. It had Marlon Brando playing Jor-El. 90% of the fight scenes between Superman and Superman clone were a waste of time. The music in this movie, by and large, sucked, so you'd have to get rid of it. Replace it with the original themes, John Williams. Yeah, you basically want to get rid of all the music, get rid of all the dialogue, almost all of it, except for two or three of the little speeches. You strip all the fat off of this thing and you've got maybe 1% muscle mass. But what did you think? Did you like this heaping, steaming pile of shit?